Here are some key musical concepts and vocabulary that will help you to understand how melodies and chords are constructed. When unfamiliar musical ideas are presented, the vocabulary can sometimes get in the way of learning. We all want to get down to playing music instead of getting some dry theory pounded into us. However, a minimum amount of theory is required to understand the relationship between musical concepts. Don't get me wrong, knowing the language of music is very useful. It will help you to communicate with other musicians, but when you're starting, too much of it can get in the way. The vocabulary you need to understand melody or chords is the octave, the interval, the half step, the chromatic note, the major scale, and a few more. And that's it. So let's get down to it. Let's start with a few basics. The staff is the 5 horizontal lines we see in this figure. This is where the notes go. For example, here are all the notes of the C major scale. The G clef is the symbol going through all staff lines on the left. This curvy figure has its start point on the second staff line from the bottom, and by convention, this indicates the G note. Why bother? Because many instruments like the guitar can cover many octaves. This means that a high note can be many lines removed from the highest staff line, and a low note many lines removed from the low line. Therefore, sometimes another clef, the F clef, is used to reposition the very low notes so that they are more in the range of the staff. Chromatic notes are all the available notes within an octave of the Western musical scale. For example, between C and the C one octave up, there is C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, etc. up to C one octave up. There are 12 notes in total within an octave. Sometimes the intermediate half-step notes, such as C sharp, are expressed in terms of the flattened note, so that we get the sequence C, D flat, D, E flat, F, G flat, and up to C, one octave up, which is identical to the notes shown previously with sharps. Depending on the major scale that you're playing, it may be more appropriate to refer to a note as a sharp or a flat. The octave is the distance between two identically named notes within a scale. The frequency of a note an octave higher is twice that of the lower note. A half step is the distance or interval between each chromatic note. A whole step has 2 half steps. The term tone is sometimes used instead of step, and semitone instead of half step. An interval is the number of half steps or whole steps between 2 notes. For example, between C and E there is 4 half steps, or 2 whole steps, and between C and G there are 7 half steps, or 3.5 whole steps. The root or tonic is the first note that you use to build the scale. For example, the tonic of the C major scale is C. The tonic of the D major scale is D. The major scale is a series of 8 consecutive notes. To build the C major scale, you start with C, move up on the chromatic scale 2 half steps to D, move up further 2 half steps to E, then 1 half step to F. Move further up 2 half steps to G, move further up 2 half steps to A, further up 2 half steps to B, and further up 1 half step to C. So the pattern to build a major scale is 2 half steps, 2 half steps, 1 half step, 2 half steps, 2 half steps, 2 half steps, 1 half step. You can use this pattern to build all the major scales, starting with each chromatic note. A chord is 3 or more notes played simultaneously. This is an example of the D minor chord. A major chord is a chord that is built from the notes of a major scale. It has 4 half steps between the first and second note of the chord, and 7 half steps between the first and third note of the chord. Many chords are produced automatically when building the chords of a major scale. This is an example of a major chord. Minor chords are produced automatically when building the chords of a major scale. We can produce a minor chord by flattening the second note of any major chord. Here's the E minor chord. A diminished chord is a chord that has 3 half steps between the first and the second note of the chord, and 6 half steps between the first and third note of the chord. A diminished chord is produced automatically when building the chords of a major scale. We can produce a diminished chord by flattening the second and third note of any major chord. Here is the B diminished chord. Scale degrees are the numbers that identify notes of a scale. For example, in the C major scale, the notes are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. They are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. This is useful because we can specify a chord note number sequence without specifying the scale that it belongs to. For example, the C major scale notes are C, E, G, the sequence 1, 3, 5. We find the same sequence in the D major scale, 1, 3, 5, which is the D major chord with the notes D, F sharp, A. Roman numeral numbers are assigned to chords. For example, in the C major scale, the chords are C major, Roman numeral uppercase 1, D minor, Roman numeral lowercase 2, etc., as in this figure. This provides a useful shorthand to describe the relationship between each chord. You can write the chords of a song independent of the scale or key of the song. It provides a similar function for chords that the scale degree numbers provide for the notes of the chord. You will find a link to the PDF file with all the material that we discussed below the video. Bye.